all eyes are currently on the Ukrainian counteroffensive. I'm not going to make military forecasts, but what I can say is that Ukraine is betting a lot on this counteroffensive. And if should Ukraine be successful in its endeavor to push out Russia from as much territory as possible, this will put Ukraine in a really, really strong negotiating position going forward. And it will also bolster support for Ukraine from its Western allies in the EU and NATO. We may see more deliveries of ammunition, of advanced weaponry, and also we may see more countries in the world outside of Ukraine's traditional allies be more supportive for Ukraine's end goals.
That's the point, Mario. We've already been in a frozen conflict ever since 2014 in the east, and of course, ergo in the south as well, with Crimea having been annexed by the Russians. But in terms of achievable goals, if the Ukrainians were to have a relatively successful campaign, do you think that actually by the end of this year we could well see negotiations about some form of peace deal and a settlement which would avoid a frozen conflict that would last another 9 years plus?
Well, negotiations at this stage appear still unlikely because we are seeing that Russia is really committed on keeping on these territories that it annexed, formally put in an annex by decree in last September. So it appears unlikely that Russia will be willing to go to the negotiating table, especially if it's coming from a weaker position after the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Russia may have been more open to this before the counteroffensive started, when Russia had held its position strongly, and that could have prevented Ukraine from taking on these territories. So it will be really difficult to see how the two nations can agree to go to the negotiating table when they are not of equal balance. But we may see an increased international push for that. We have already seen the Chinese plans for resolving the conflict. We have now seen some statements coming from other emerging countries, such as Indonesia, such as Brazil, that have called for immediate negotiations. So there will be this increased push from big international players. But personally, I don't see negotiations happening before the end.
Mario, earlier in the conflict, we saw key infrastructure taken out by attacks from the Russians. Since then, it felt as though the deployment of Western missile defense systems has protected even major cities like Kyiv. But now, in the past week or so, we're talking about this dam story, the attack, whether it's the Ukrainians themselves or the Russians, but it has very much led to large-scale flooding. The damage on key infrastructure from here as this conflict ramps up, how do we think about it? What does it mean for the economic prospects of Ukraine?
So at EAU, we have been forecasting that the Ukrainian economy will not experience a rebound this year. It will stagnate. We have been forecasting growth below 1% for this year as a result of the ongoing hostilities and the damage to the economy. Now, following the dam collapse last week, the dangers for the Ukrainian economy will be even greater. There will be problems with the agricultural sector, and there will also be a hit to economic activity from loss of livelihood, loss of electricity, loss of drinking water. So the damage to the Ukrainian economy from this dam collapse will be extensive, and it will be really hard to mitigate, especially under continuing Russian artillery strikes. So it will be definitely one to watch. I saw some reports from yesterday that there was another smaller dam that was attacked in Donetsk Oblast, if I'm not mistaken, which also shows that these damages to critical infrastructure will continue and will continue to strangle the Ukrainian economy.